Hello and welcome back to Charging Status, the EV focused podcast brought to you from the Interface. As always, I'm joined by my co-host Jim Starling. How are we doing, Jim?
I'm good, Alex. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad.
You're good.
All good. You've been busy doing car stuff. What have we been up to since we recorded last time? We recorded early June. We were a little bit late last time, but what have we both been up to?
I don't know what you've been up to, but I've been yesterday, actually, or no, day before. I was at the UK launch of the Mini Cooper Electric, and I had the SE Sport model in JCW trim, level
Nice.
3, so it was completely fully spec'd. That's a car that starts at 30 grand for the E version.
Yep.
The SE is about 34 and a half. That gives you a bigger battery, a bit more performance. And then you've basically got all the different levels, and then you can choose like classic or JCW on top of that. The PR guy there sort of described it to me as build a car workshop, which I thought was quite amusing. So you can't have an additional sort of one-off option of anything, but there's a pack and an option to seemingly suit everyone.
Yeah.
But the one I was in was about 43 fully spec'd.
Yeah.
But actually the standard spec's pretty generous. It's got all the things you would really want in the standard spec, and then the other things are all nice to haves.
Yeah.
But oh my word, what a car that is! Oh, it's unbelievably good. I absolutely loved it. Go-kart mode is one of my favorite things ever. It's just so silly, so childish. And yeah, it's just a great car. You can throw it into any kind of bend at seemingly any kind of speed, and it just deals with it. It's not lightning fast 0 to 60, but it's certainly fast enough. It's got decent range at last. Yeah, it's just a great car.
I have to say, since I saw your picture on Instagram or Twitter, I probably spent a good half an hour on the configurator afterwards, messing around with it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think people might think it's a bit expensive, but to me, Mini's always been like a premium, little hatchback. And if the old electric Mini is anything to go by, the new one's probably going to be just as good quality inside. So
I also think like a 30 grand one's a really good car. And 30 grand for a new EV, there's not bags of competition that's going to be significantly better.
Yeah.
So I think at that starting price point, it's actually not too bad. Even though we're talking about £30,000, you know, by modern standards, that's not exceptionally high. When you're looking at 40 grand one, of course, you're then up against, well, do I buy a Tesla Model 3 instead? But they're very, very different beasts, and they're for very different people. And I dare say in 9 homes out of 10, the Mini will be the second car.
Yeah. And then they do have their 2 batteries now, which is really good, because the old one, the battery was in a weird place in the car. It wasn't a bespoke EV. This one is bespoke, even though it looks the same as the petrol one. It's a completely different car underneath, and then there are 2 batteries available now, which is really good. I think 250 miles of range on the top one, which is good. That's really good.
Yeah.
So,
I hate to correct you, Alex, but it's only 249.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, maybe try a bit harder next time.
No, but then also, I think what took me by surprise when I first looked at the Mini Electric, it was that the sport ones are no faster. They're just like starting packs. So it's like almost like a sport line. So
yeah, it is a tiny bit faster. So
okay.
Yeah, so the E, I think 0 to 60 is something like 7.3, and the SE Sport 6.7 0 to 60. So it's marginal.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah, and because you're basically in a go-kart, I mean, you're so low to the ground, you've got a wheel absolutely pushed into each corner. Like the feeling of speed is there. Like if by modern standards, 7 seconds 0 to 60 is not particularly fast. When I was growing up, that was a sports car, but that was a long time ago.
It was.
Yeah, I think that like the perception of speed is, and that's great because it means you can have a lot of fun without losing your license.
Well, I find that in my car as well. So if I go around B roads in my car, like because I'm so low down, I feel like I'm going a lot faster than I would be in an SUV. So it definitely, I can definitely understand that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing more on the road because it looks fab. There are some negative comments online about how it looks, but I imagine it looks really good in person, and in pictures it looks great. So
I think it looks amazing, and I think it's a really nice evolution of what's gone before it. Yeah, it's very cool.
Fab. You've also got a new channel as well. So the name on this is brilliant.
There's a story behind this.
Okay.
So my new channel is dedicated to travel, and it'll be, if you've seen my other YouTube channel, you're probably fairly used to it being kind of consumer advice or tips, things to help you try and save money, things to help you understand things that are not always made completely obvious to you by the person selling them to you. And then there will be some just full on like travel vlog stuff. So on Monday, I'm going to Mallorca for a couple of days with a mate, and I've paid 50 quid return for the flights. The whole thing will cost, I don't know, 150 quid or something. So I'll just do a really rough, I don't want to take any equipment, so I can get away with just a carry-on bag, but I'll probably do a little rough vlog on my phone. So that kind of stuff's going to be on there as well. But hopefully it offers something a bit different. And I love to travel, so it seemed like a good fit. But it's called Jet Set Jimbo. And when I was at school, back when dinosaurs roamed the earth, there was a very popular cartoon on the TV called Jimbo and the Jet Set. And because of my name, about 50% of the 1,000 pupils at my school used to find it absolutely hilarious to walk up to me and go, Jimbo, which was the theme tune to Jimbo and the Jet Set.
Right, okay.
And it seemed to get funnier for them every time they did it for all, I don't know, 4 years that I was at the school. And I thought, actually, yeah, Jet Set Jimbo, it works.
Yeah, it's fun.
As you know, I live a jet set lifestyle, so I mean, you know, we got Chinese takeaway last weekend.
Oh, that is out there, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't play by the rules, mate.
I thought the video on the car hire one was super interesting. Like,
Good.
With stuff you've made like that, there's always something in there that's like, oh, I didn't even think of that. Like, how have you thought? Like, how have you thought of that? But like, it must be just the masses of years of experience you've got. But yeah.
Well, you know, I don't sleep.
So you've got time to think of all these things.
Yeah. I that's borrowed, by the way, that little quip from you there. But I don't sleep, and I think about things just to the absolute nth degree. And the result of that sometimes is I find something useful out. But sometimes I sit there wondering how each apple doesn't just turn into a tree. Useful things like that at 3 a.m.
What's the secret to YouTube there? Don't sleep.
But I think from the travel kind of thing, I think it came back from kind of growing up. We didn't go abroad really. There wasn't a great deal of money floating around. And I got on a plane for the first time when I was 18 and loved it. And it'd always been a dream of mine to go to Orlando and do all the theme parks and everything from probably the age of about 5 when I became aware of it. And I loved movies, and America always appealed massively. And at the time, you know, we had next to nothing and times were a bit hard. And I just thought, well, I'm going to go. I'm just going to find out a way of making it affordable. Yeah. And I probably spent 8 months researching a holiday, and we went to Orlando for the first time probably 20 years ago, and it was 700 quid each for 2 weeks, with a car and everything else. And I think the travel agent quote at the time was like 4.5 grand.
Wow.
So research pays off.
In terms of what I've been up to, I think when we recorded last time, I had the KGM Torres on the drive, and then about 2 days after that, I had the BYD Dolphin. And then I remember during the week I texted you saying, "Oh my god, this car is really good." And my thing about that car, I couldn't find anything really wrong with it.
Yeah.
Apart from maybe the charging speed wasn't quite as high as it could be, but that didn't really matter that much. But no, with that the review went out the other day. It's done quite well already, which is quite good. And then really, really good car, and really like amazing efficiency as well, which I found just so impressive for a car that size. So
Yeah, I'll have to get another one in actually, because it's been a long time, and I only spent a few hours with it. I did a video for Men and Motors, I think, but
yeah,
I only spent a few hours with it, and I should probably revisit that. One thing I've sort of picked up was it was quite noisy on the motorway.
it was a little bit,
not
to be fair.
massively well insulated, but a minor grumble really.
Yeah, I think the other day I saw on LinkedIn that they've added wireless CarPlay literally after I published the review. So
Right. Okay.
so there's an update for that now, which is good. But no, if that car is anything to go by what the Seagull is going to be like when that comes here, it's just there, and it just puts other companies to shame a little bit in terms of what they're offering for that price. So I just
Yeah. So
really,
what's the price?
it's 30,000.
Yeah, I mean it's fairly compelling for that kind of money.
Yeah, and the biggest thing I found was I couldn't find anything in the interior that felt like it was cheap.
Yeah, no, it does feel really solid, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. The sound system was quite good as well, from what I remember. So yeah,
and like great to drive.
yeah. At the very end of the review, I said, "Would I buy one?" I said yes. So that's good enough. What do you call it? Verdict if you had one. So
yeah, and it's got a half reasonable boot as well, considering the size of the car.
Yeah, there's got like 2 levels from what I remember, and then there's another bit underneath as well with all the emergency stuff. Rear space was really good. Sunroof was amazing. That was a really nice feature to have. Screen's really good as well. Yeah, can't go wrong with that.
Nice. And what about the Torres? Did we talk about that last time?
I can't remember. I can't remember if we did. That was, I think we mentioned that the petrol one wasn't very good from what I remember.
Yeah.
And then the electric one was better, but still not perfect.
Yeah. So I've had the electric one since,
Yep.
and definitely better than the petrol one.
Yep.
But definitely more work to be done.
Yeah.
I would say. Yeah, it's far from perfect.
Yeah, I know.
I think quite a few of the issues could be dealt with software, to be honest. And
It's true.
yeah, once that happens, I don't know. Sometimes some things that when you creep 3 miles an hour over a speed limit and basically an air horn goes off in your face.
It was 1 mile an hour for me.
Oh yeah, it was 1 mile an hour actually. Yeah,
It's awful.
You know, those kind of things really, I don't know. Something frustrates you significantly. It really colours the way you think about a car, I think. And
Yeah.
I'd love to see one of those cars in maybe a year after they've done a couple of software firmware updates and see how it looks at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, it was a disappointment for me because I had been really looking forward to the Torres ever since it was announced.
Me too, actually, because the design looks good on the front. So
yeah.
Oh,
well.
I don't know what part of legislation it is, but I know in the review you mentioned that obviously cars have to do it now. But what I noticed with the Torres, if you're entering a speed limit that's obviously slower than what you were going, it instantly, as soon as you enter that speed limit, it instantly starts beeping at you. But the BYD Dolphin, it would give you a bit of a grace period.
Yeah,
because obviously you just you slow down a little bit. And
usually if you go a couple of miles an hour over, it will let you do that for a reasonable amount of time before it starts to beep at you.
Yep.
It won't do it the second you touch it, you know.
Yep.
And some of the traffic sign recognition as well was a bit iffy.
It was. Yeah, it was actually, yeah.
Yeah, I was getting beeped at for being in a 30 and I was going down a dual carriageway with a 50 limit.
Oh,
It picked up a sign from like Slip Road or something.
I can beat that. I think I was pulling out of an industrial estate, 5 mile an hour speed limit, and I had that for about 2 miles down the road after I entered another main road. So, yeah. That brings me on to another topic, actually. I meant to ask you. So, with this legislation, do you know if it affects cars that are on sale now or cars that are made, like manufactured, if that makes sense. So if, for example, I had a Volkswagen Polo courtesy car the other day that had one thing that was related to that entire ecosystem of alerts, lane assist. That was it, and you can turn it off with one button press. But that was the only thing the car had. But this is like a 24 plate car, so
So I don't know is the answer, and I know the changes that are coming are fairly huge, but what I believe it to be is that you can't turn anything off permanently, and it has to take at least 2 presses of something, and it has to be different things. So you can't have one button that you have to press twice.
right.
You'd have to go into a menu or something in order to turn it off, and to basically make it more difficult for people to turn off all the time.
Yeah.
I'm sure someone will come out with some hack for it so you can just disable it, but then is your insurance invalid or
That's
something
the thought
if
I
you've
had.
disabled it? And because the insurance price is related to how safe the car is. But look, lots of these safety things now are the absolute antithesis of safety. They're actually a massive distraction.
Yep.
I mean, the Mini had like the speed assist or whatever they call it. So it's reading the road signs. If you go over the speed limit, it gave you a warning. But it was much more subtle, and actually it wasn't that annoying. And you could look at that one and think, oh, actually the way they've done this could be useful. But I think in the KGM, we had an example there of how actually it's a massive distraction and probably makes you a much worse driver.
Yeah, it was. It was very distracting. It's not very well implemented, in my opinion. So,
no.
Yeah. That's all. That's all I've been driving recently. I think that's all you've been driving as well. It's the Mini and the KGM. So. Nice. Before we get started, just a quick reminder to review this show if you can. Please give us a review on the podcast platform of your choice. It really does help the podcast out as we're trying to grow this show. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, drop us a like and a comment. Again, it really does help. Now, I've got an interesting segment. So before we get into the news, I've devised a list of all the Chinese companies that are either on sale here right now or coming soon. But do both of us think that there's an issue, the fact that Chinese brands are selling here? Because if you have a look on the Daily Fail and other publications like that, you'll see that all the comments are just very, very against this sort of stuff. And we've driven our fair share of Chinese cars. Do you think it's a problem that they sell cars here? Because I don't.
So there's a really weird double standard that people have around this kind of stuff, and there's also a feeling that if it's a Chinese brand, then it's evil. But people will go and buy another brand that's full of Chinese parts, and they're usually making their comment on a Chinese phone, but it might be Apple, so they don't consider it to be Chinese, and it goes on and on and on, this chain of things. The fact is that most of what lots of us have in our homes are made in China nowadays, and we might not agree with the Chinese government and the things they do, but there aren't always amazing alternatives, and you also have to look at the value they're offering people. Whenever I put a review of a Chinese car up, there will be scores of comments saying Chinese crap and I'll never own a Chinese item, blah blah blah. And again, that's been made on an iPhone. That comment's been made on an iPhone that's made in China, for example. I personally think it's a competitive marketplace, and people should just be allowed to compete. And if the Chinese state are funding these cars and these brands, which we know they are, if they choose to do that, they choose to do that. It's benefiting their economy. They obviously feel it's providing lots of employment. We could do the same. The EU could do the same. I did a video about the tariffs the EU are looking to impose on Chinese cars. And you look in the comments of that, and some people are going crazy saying it's not enough. They should tax them more because we don't want all this Chinese crap and all these kind of things. And it's going to kill the legacy manufacturers. VW alone made 22 billion last year. So if VW decided to shave a bit off their margin in order to compete, there's a bit of fat there that could be trimmed away. You know,
Yeah,
22 billion. And it happens in every industry. You know, when look at the retailers that have gone out of business because people have started shopping online, and they've done that because they're getting sometimes a better service and they're getting it for cheaper. And the retailers haven't been able to compete with that, or they haven't wanted to compete. There are so many of those retailers that just didn't change, and the ones that have changed and adapted are still around.
Yep.
So I think it's a little bit small-minded. I understand people's concerns with the Chinese government and the way they sometimes treat their people. And it just comes down to whether you want to make a big moral statement. But if so, don't have an iPhone. Probably you can't watch a TV, or very few of them. You know,
Yeah.
This thing runs much deeper than which car you choose to run.
Yeah, there is a little bit of difference as well. Just because an iPhone's made in China doesn't mean that all the whole company is based there. Obviously, it's based in America. But these are, I understand that people think, okay, the car's from a Chinese company, it's also made in China as well. Does those two things together sort of aggravate people a little bit? Yeah.
But the phone's made in China for a reason.
Yes.
It's because it's really cheap to make it in China.
Yeah.
And it's really cheap to make it in China because they have people in awful conditions and pay them next to nothing, and whatever other reasons there are around it. And that's as far as I'm concerned, that's the problem people have with it. You'll also find, you know, people are much, much more open to having an MG than they are to having a BYD or a SsangYong, even though SsangYong's Korean.
I know.
And it's just because MG's a familiar brand.
Yeah, that's where the buying of that brand was such a smart move.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But I mean, that MG sake is the Chinese government, very, very much so.
Yeah.
But whenever I post an MG video, I get far fewer comments about sort of just fairly almost racist Chinese kind of stuff than I do if I post something else. I mean, on that one of the Torres videos, I got Chinese crap on a lot of it, and I mean, they're Korean.
There was an article about the new Genesis Magma, which we'll talk about in a bit, and someone said, "Is this Chinese?" in the comments.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Anyway, so I was going to go for a list of brands that are either going to sell here soon or have sold here. So the first one we've got is Great Wall Motors. So we know they haven't got a massive holding in the UK. They've only got the Aura brand. So we know that they've got the Aura 03, Funky Cat, and then the Lightning Cat Aura 07 is on its way. I don't know if you saw Great Wall Motors Way brand, or I think it used to be called Way Coffee, the models. So I don't know if they're actually going to launch in the UK anytime soon, but I know they're on sale in Europe at the moment. So I'm guessing they'll see how Aura's doing before they decide to make any right-hand drive cars. So,
which I think Aura's doing quite well now. They've put some deals out there and, you know, priced it a bit more sensibly.
Yeah, I'd look on the SMMT data for, where are we now, June, May, and I think there's a massive increase in their sales, like 1,000% increase or something stupid like that. I'll put some pictures on screen if I can find it, but
yeah, one of my best friends has just got one actually. Leased it for 160 quid a month.
Yep. That does been around for a while, so yeah.
It's one of those rare things where someone asked my advice and then took it.
Yeah,
happens about once a decade.
Is he enjoying it? Is he liking it?
Yeah, he's loving it.
Yeah. There you go. Very nice. So yeah, they've got a few brands here, but one brand here, but maybe another one coming soon. The other one is Cherry or Cher. I don't know how you pronounce that. Cherry, I guess, but
Cherry Motors.
Cherry Motors. Yeah, they've got a couple brands. They've got a Moda, which we saw. They've got a car launching pretty soon. That's electric and petrol. They've also got another brand called JQ, And interestingly, Chery Motors has got a partnership, like what do they call it, like a joint venture with JLR, Jaguar Land Rover, and there was just announced that the Freelander is going to come back, but not as a model, but as a standalone brand.
Yeah.
And they're going to make Freelander EVs in China for the Chinese market at the moment.
Oh, it's going to be a brand.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I saw that. I don't know if it was a photo or an artist's impression or something.
It's an artist's impression on that one.
Yeah, of the new Freelander.
Yeah.
And it looked quite like an I-Pace, didn't it?
It did. It's weird when Autocar do that.
That was the model, not the...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I know they put the...
Sorry, you carry on.
It's weird when Autocar do that. They make an artist's impression and everyone in the comments thinks that's the car. It's really weird.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah. I was going to say the same thing. They do it in Auto Express as well.
Yeah.
And you think, oh, wow, this looks amazing. And then you find out it's just what someone thinks it might look like.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's going to be a standalone brand. They might import them here. So, but I think JLR and Chery Motors are going to share some underpinnings. I'm not sure on that. So, but yeah, there's SAIC, which famously, well, the SAIC didn't buy the MG brand. There was another company, I can't remember the name, that bought it, and then they merged with SAIC ages ago. So they got MG in this country, which we mentioned, doing pretty well. Maxus as well, which was a result of LDV being bought. I think LDV is the name. And that they turned into Maxus. Some people forget that Maxus and MG are actually related. And then you were really, really impressed with these cars, IM Motors. But they're actually going to launch in the UK next year. These are like a premium MG, but they look they look really good.
Very, very premium.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that's there to compete with Mercedes, etc.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but they're very cool looking things, and the interior was exceptional on every one I sat in. And then there are also the other MG models that we don't get here at Geneva. So they had the MG7 and the MG9,
right?
And they were both very premium and really cool.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. The thing is, we've got a lot of brands here, but the thought I always had was with these is, are we going to? It sounds like a bit of maybe a false complaint, but we're going to run out of space for dealerships. Like, not terms of, I don't know, just terms of where if you know what I mean. Like, there's only so many dealerships we can put in towns and stuff, or they're going to be sold online. And
I think we'll get fewer and fewer dealerships. I think a lot of these brands will probably have, like people open up a showroom in a shopping mall.
Oh, Genesis do, yeah.
Yeah, and then you just order it on an iPad. Tesla have done it for years, haven't they?
Yeah. That's true.
You order the car on an iPad if you want one.
That's true, yeah.
I could see a lot more of that, and then possibly either mobile servicing or just local service stations. And if you go into a local service station, you look at someone like Psych, for example, you could take your MG, your Maxus, or your IM there.
Yeah.
Chery, you could take your Omoda, your Jaiku, or your JLR. But I think obviously Genesis done it where they would come and collect the car from you and then bring it back.
But they give you a car, don't they? They come in the car, leave that with you, and then
yeah. So there are ways around it, but I think there's two things with having dealerships. One thing, they've got a lot of overhead because obviously they're very expensive to rent and to staff and everything else.
Yeah.
And then they've also got the liability of the staff. If you've got a dodgy salesman that's not doing things properly, and the time comes and the regulator steps in, you're possibly leaving yourself open to huge amounts of compensation for mis-selling.
Yeah.
As we're about to see, I would assume at some stage for car finance.
Yeah. Just a thought I had. I don't know if we're there's just a lot of brands coming here, but it isn't a problem. It's good competition, but yeah. The next one we mentioned, BYD. BYD, a massive company. Obviously been making batteries for a very long time. They've got a lot of brands underneath them. So BYD is their main company. Obviously got the Dolphin, the Seal U, the Seal, other things like that. But they've also got some premium brands underneath them. So two of them are actually going to make an appearance at Goodwood this year. So Denza, which I believe is a they make an MPV at the moment and some other premium sort of looking vehicles.
Yeah, I saw that at Geneva,
Okay.
the big Denza thing. Yeah,
Yep.
it's, again, massively premium limo style
Yeah.
MPV. Yeah, I think it was the one I saw was set up for maybe 4 passengers or 5 passengers.
Yeah.
But it was kind of a mobile office space, like a meeting room.
Yeah.
It's very plush.
Yeah, just another sub. If you're interested in some content about Chinese EVs, there's 2 channels which I recommend. There's Wheels Boy. There's like an American lad about my age that just drives Chinese EVs, and then also Elliot Richards from Fully Charged. He's got his own channel which he goes around China driving different EVs with his mates. So both of those are actually quite interesting. I find those quite fascinating. I'm sure other people would as well, just to see the other side of the world, basically. It's quite interesting. And then there's Yang Wang, which they're also going to make an appearance at Goodwood as well. They've got 2 vehicles. They've got the U8 SUV, which is absolutely massive, can float. It's not fully EV, it's actually a hybrid. And then they've also got the U9, which I don't know if you've seen. That car can actually jump. So it's got airbags in its front suspension. It can jump in the air, which is just insane. So that's like a 1,200 horsepower electric supercar, 4-wheel drive. Like really, really, really fast performance, sort of Tesla Roadster sort of stuff. So it's just the stuff they're coming out with is just insane. So
yeah.
These 2 are actually going to come pretty soon. So there's a company called Skyworth, which have the Skywell B11, I think it's called. That's going to go on sale here pretty soon. We've got a bit we'll talk about in a minute about that car. There's also the Ceres group, which have Ceres brand, which has a little SUV again, but also DFSK. And I saw one of their little vans. It looks like a really weird little van. I saw that at the CV show. But those 3 brands there have been imported to the UK by IM International Motors. They're not coming here by themselves.
Yeah, those DFSK vans look like the old Sooty vans. Some people will remember.
Okay.
Like Suzuki did a tiny, tiny little van years ago and used to see loads of them around. And that DFSK one really reminds me of it. The Suzuki one's quite cool, actually.
Yeah. No, I see what you mean. They look like they should have been released a long time ago.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's a very nice way of saying it's very old-fashioned.
Yeah. The next one is Geely or Geely. This one is really interesting because they've been buying up companies that you know and love already. So they own Volvo, they own Smart. So when people say they don't like Chinese EVs, what they're saying is I'm not going to have a Volvo, a Smart car, a Lotus, or a Polestar. So
yeah,
because these are, from what I understand, a lot of the development is actually happening in China now. Those. Yeah. In terms of new brands, so LEVC, so the taxi company, they've got a new MPV coming pretty soon, but also Lynk & Co. So Lynk & Co. Yeah, coming to the UK next year, and then also Zeekr, UK debut in the next 2 years. They're already on sale in other places in Europe, I think.
Yeah, Lynk & Co. have been around in Europe for a little while now, haven't they?
They were going to do a launch here ages ago, but it fell through. But they're gonna try it again. But what I found interesting was all the companies I just mentioned are quite large companies, and they own a lot of brands between them. But the last 4 are all standalone companies. They're all founded by, generally the like XPeng is founded by a guy called something XPeng, NIO as well. They're obviously founded by the founder, and they're still in charge. So NIO. These cars look super interesting. The UK launch was a bit on the cards because the MD left to work for Polestar, I believe, for the UK. I think he went to work somewhere else. But as of yesterday, the UK MD was appointed. So they're going to launch here pretty soon. They got some lovely cars, like estate cars and stuff. They look quite cool.
Their stuff looks really cool. As do XPeng. We need to try and make inroads into those 2, don't we? So we can hopefully get involved in launches.
Yeah, it's a good idea. So XPeng UK launched this year. There's Airways or AI Ways late 2024, and then there's another one called Hi-Fi or HI-Fi UK launch in the next 2 years. So there's lots and lots of brands coming here pretty soon. It's an interesting time. I know you've said in the past that it's a really interesting time in the automotive industry because it's been a bit stale in terms of new brands for a very long time. So it's really nice to see new things launching. So
yeah, it is the most interesting time in the industry since the horse and cart went out, really.
Yeah, agreed. It's a lot of change coming. It's quite interesting. So cool. I thought that was an interesting little thing to have part of the podcast. We've got a lot of news to get through. So as of yesterday, I believe, or Wednesday, or some point this week, there was the super interesting looking Hyundai Insta. This is a little EV. It sits so in terms of the size, it sits just in between the Volkswagen Up and the Volkswagen Polo. It's about 3.8 meters long, so it's quite a small car, but quite a tall car as well. This looks super interesting, like super good range, really, really good specs, and a really nice interior. Have you had a chance to look at this yet? Have you been a bit busy?
Yeah, I haven't seen any of the walkarounds or anything. I've just seen like photos and sort of read the specs on it. But yeah, it looks very cool.
Yeah, I watched Ginny Buckley's walk around last night, and she did a really good job of that. So as standard, this car's got a heat pump. So I'll get to the price first. £22,000 apparently. That's what it's going to cost. For that, you get vehicle to load. You get 11 kilowatt AC charging. Every single version of this car has a heat pump, which is exactly what you need. And the vehicle to load is very much as a Hyundai and Genesis they do. It's got a 3-pin in the interior, but it's also got that adapter that you get for the Type 2 socket. So really, really good spec. It's got loads of Hyundai bits on it. So you've got the Hyundai Ioniq 6 steering wheel. You've got lots of very familiar buttons. And something I love is that there's buttons everywhere for the heating. There's not a touchscreen haptic control anywhere. So it doesn't look old-fashioned. It looks modern, but it's in a nice sort of retro-y way.
I think it's a really cool looking little thing.
It really is.
Yeah, it's got bags of character. I think it'll be slightly Marmite. I don't think everyone's going to see it and immediately fall in love, but I think it's just nice to see little sort of utilitarian cars like this, if you like, being interesting to look at and having a bit of character, because they could easily have just made a box.
Yes.
And they haven't. So yeah, it definitely looks very interesting.
I really love the direction that the Hyundai Motor Group is going in. Everything they release seems just either be really good technically level, in terms of the efficiency in the EV stuff, and also generally a really good design. So that's apparently going to go on sale either very, very late this year or very, very early next year. And for 22k, if that's what the price is going to be, that's very, very, very competitive.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. That'd be really good. This was announced, or like its debut was, I think, happened a few days after we recorded earlier this month. This is the Alpine A290. Johnny Smith did a fab review, like a fab walk around the other day. This is based on the new Renault 5, which is supposed to launch pretty soon. It's like a hot hatch version of that car, basically. This looks really good as well.
It looks amazing, doesn't it? Yeah. I mean, that Renault 5 in the flesh is just unbelievably good looking.
Yep.
And to have a hotter version of it, what's not to like?
Yeah, I do think we're entering quite an interesting time for EV stuff. It's not just boring stuff.
Yeah,
like Econo stuff. There's a lot of interesting stuff coming out, and despite what people say, if all these manufacturers are getting on board and making interesting stuff, it's only going to be a good thing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, everyone's had their proof of concept out, and everyone's had their a sort of a good toe dipped in the water now, and I think there's going to be more and more call for things that interest and excite in different ways, rather than just it makes good financial sense, or it's very convenient, or it goes really fast in a straight line.
Yep. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's an interesting time.
Yeah, so this one's got 236 miles of range. It's about 1.4 kilos. 1.4 tons. It's got the Renault 5 comes with 2 batteries. This one is only going to have the larger of the 2. 52 kilowatt hours and 100 kilowatt charging, which is really good.
Yeah, very.
Yeah. Again, I don't know if you've seen this because this was just yesterday as well. Volkswagen have invested £4 billion in Rivian to form a new joint venture, mainly to share software, because Rivian, I don't know if you've seen, Rivian software is so good.
Yeah.
They do a lot with I can't remember, the Epic Games is sort of Unreal Engine, that's it, sorry. For rendering a lot of the stuff on the screen. So, and VW have famously not been very good at software, so Rivian are going to help them with software and also share some platform stuff. So that's a lot of money invested. So yeah,
and it looks like a really wise investment, because VW software is probably letting it down a tiny bit at the moment, certainly on the EVs, and probably helps Rivian out massively as well, because the shares in Rivian sort of went down to almost nothing.
Yep.
I know, because I bought a couple £100 worth of them when the truck came out, and I think my £200 last time I looked was worth about £3.
Oh,
so
okay.
yeah, so I would say the wolf was possibly approaching the door for Rivian, and £4 billion of investment will be great. And obviously, there's bound to be some sort of trade-off there as well between the two companies in terms of sharing other parts of their R&D, and even future R&D. You know, are they both going to pay for this to R&D the same things? No, you know, it's the sort of thing where you could see VW just acquiring Rivian at some stage.
Part of the VW group, yeah.
Yeah.
And their updated R1T, the Mark II version, the interior on that looks so good. Like, really nice colours, really nice wood dash, just a really, really nice design on that.
Yeah.
The next one, Fisker, has gone bankrupt. This was the writing was on the wall for a long time. As soon as they announced that the cars were getting cheaper, or I think they announced something early this year that they couldn't sell them, I think, something along those lines. In Q4 last year, they reported a loss of 355 million. There are some good deals on the Ocean, but I'm not sure if that's a wise purchase decision, mainly to do with how dependent they are on software. So if you bought if you bought a petrol car from a company that went bust, you're not really going to have a problem. But in terms of how much technology is involved in an EV, if something goes wrong with some of the chargers, they're not there to issue a patch for it. Software patch.
There's absolutely no way I'd buy one. I mean, I could, if there are enough of them out there, you could see a company coming along and taking it over, like the software side of things, for a monthly subscription, because that would probably be a really great business model for someone to come in and say, we'll keep updating your car and it's going to cost you £20 a month. But I don't know if enough of them were out sort of in general population, as it were.
Don't know.
For it to be worthwhile for anyone to come in.
I've actually seen 2 on the road in the last few days near me. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I've never seen one on the road.
Oh, okay. So,
yeah. I know they were coming in at Southampton at the docks, and there were, hundreds of them just sitting there. And I thought, oh, these are going to be everywhere. And then obviously all the reviews started to appear, and
So there's a few on Auto Trader for like 20k at the moment that have done delivery miles.
Wow.
Yeah. There's some auction places which have got them quite cheap as well. I've seen people say. So I just wouldn't want to touch it just in case something went wrong. So
yeah, same.
We talked about BYD earlier. So BYD have launched their first hybrid in the UK. This is going to make a debut at the Goodwood show again, along with the other cars they've got. So in the UK, this is going to be 33,000, which when we look at EV prices, I think the EV prices have sort of skewed my perception of cost of cars now, because that seems like quite a good price. I don't know. So it's going to be full hybrid for now, plug-in hybrid. EV version will come down the line, but the main news is here that the EV version in China has a 71 or 87 kilowatt hour battery pack at up to 376 miles of range. So it's their SUV that sort of sits in between. Well, it's actually bigger than the Atto 3 and sort of quite a nice sort of size vehicle. So that's quite good that they're expanding that. And yeah, that's pretty much
it. Yeah, I saw that at Geneva as well, and I just sort of think the design could be a little bit more interesting with the CLU. Like on paper, it all looks great, but I don't know. I'm not excited by it.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
But I'm sure it's probably a brilliant car.
Yeah, the design of the interior is definitely different to what they've got currently. It's a little bit of a different design language, which is bit more BYD news. BYD CEO has actually publicly called out the US and the EU for being overly worried about EVs from China. He said, and I quote, if you are not strong enough, they will not be afraid of you. There are many examples of politicians in other countries who are worried about EVs in China. That's basically what he said. And the main worry is about the BYD Seagull, which Ford CEO Jim Farley has actually said it's a pretty damn good car. And that's, basically $10,000 equivalent in China. I completely agree. There's a lot of fear, as we mentioned earlier, gone into it all. So
and unfortunately, that very good cheap car will just be taxed up the wazoo by the time we see it.
I know,
and it will start to look like something that's, not amazing value, I guess. But it's a real shame because the fact that some legacy manufacturers want to continue to make huge profits shouldn't really detrimentally affect the consumer. Everyone should have a choice, really.
Yep.
That's my thought.
No, completely agree. Definitely. In the China segment of the podcast, we mentioned the Skywell BE11. That's been announced for the UK. First deliveries are in September, so a few months away now. Again, it's being imported by Innovation Automotive, up to an 86 kilowatt battery pack. Prices are not known yet, and 304 miles of range. I think Jack from Fully Charged did a little walk around video. He wasn't too impressed with the interior quality of the car, but the specs on paper look good, which
I haven't seen anything about that, to be honest.
It looks very bland, and then it doesn't really help itself that apparently the interior quality is not very good, but we can't pull judgment on it.
With all those brands that are coming, I mean, you've got to think that if half of them remain, then they've done really well, haven't they?
Yes. Yeah. Some will fail.
It may be that. Yeah, it may be some of them will live on in Europe, but we don't actually continue to get them in the UK.
Yep.
But it just might not make it. You never know.
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah. The Tesla Model Y facelift is not coming this year, says Tesla CEO Elon Musk. So I just assume then possibly next year, because someone on Twitter asked him directly, just said, "Is the facelift going to come soon?" And he said, "No, not this year." So, and that's
you've got to think it's early next year then.
Yeah, it's widely expected to just be a Model 3 Highland, just in the Model Y shape. I would imagine, for your sake, that you're probably... I can't remember if you were a fan of the indicator buttons on the Model 3. I wasn't.
No, I didn't like the indicator buttons at all. But the Highland Model 3 I thought was a massive upgrade.
Yes.
I think it looks a lot better. I think it drives better. Obviously, you've got more range, and it felt really, really well put together. So I'm sure I'm going to like the Highland version. I just think the indicator thing's a bit stupid.
Yeah, definitely. We've got a new GV60 coming next year. Now, I thought that it was a bit weird that Autocar put it's going to cost £100,000 when there's no actual solid information on the price at all yet.
Yeah, again, that's something all the car magazines do. Is they with the Insta, nobody said it's 22 grand. Everyone's just saying it'll be about 22 grand, and usually when they say that, they've under-egged it.
Yeah.
Unless, like with this one, I think they've maybe over-egged it just to get a nice round headline, possibly.
Yeah.
But it could be someone's got inside knowledge that we don't know about. But
yeah, when I write stuff, I try and avoid doing stupid stuff like that. To be honest, it may be to my detriment, but I just rather say it as honestly as I can.
Yeah, the fact is we don't know how much it's going to cost.
Exactly. So this is the GV60 Magma, nice orange colour on that. It's most likely going to sit on the same platform as your favourite car, the Hyundai Ioniq 5N, which, if that's the case, it's 89 kilowatt battery pack, 641 brake horsepower, and 278 miles of range. Now, the development chief of Genesis spoke to Autocar and he said, "This will be built for the gentleman driver." So that's you, Jim.
Absolutely.
This is not about speed; it's about driving from A to B in an exciting, enthusiastic way. So yeah, I definitely think that the Ioniq 5 is more of a hot hatch. This is going to be more of a nice, big, sort of fast SUV.
Well,
so,
but
yeah,
gentleman driver is something a term they use like at Goodwood, isn't it? So if you go to like the members meeting or revival or anything like that, they'll have the professional drivers and then they have the gentleman drivers, and it just means really rich people that own very fast cars.
Right. Okay.
So like I've been to members meeting before, and you've got a race, and on the grid you've got Dario Franchitti, Chris Harris, Tiff Needell, Johnny Herbert, Karim Chandarok, and then you've got like Dave Bloggs, who is a property magnate and happens to own 4 of the cars that are in the race. And they're gentlemen drivers.
Right. Okay.
So I think they're trying to make it. They're saying it's going to be an absolute monster, probably like the Ioniq 5N. However, it's also going to be luxurious, and it's going to be for a better class of human than the louts that might drive the Ioniq 5N.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be at Goodwood actually.
Oh, cool. All right.
Yeah, so I shall be doing a video at Goodwood on the Thursday. So
nice.
I'll try and get that in it.
Sounds good. Yeah, again, the £100,000 price was just an estimate. I'd imagine probably 10, 20 grand more than the top spec GV60, which is 77 grand at the moment. So I wouldn't imagine it would be as high as 100, but yeah. Now, speaking of 100 grand cars, the Range Rover Electric has gained 38,000 people on its wait list.
Wow.
And this was at 16,000 in February this year, so it's gained a lot of interest. This will most likely be over £100,000 because the Range Rover standard one is £100,000. So there isn't much to say about this because we don't know anything about it. The specs, everything is not yet known. But there is one picture that they supplied a few months ago. But I thought that was quite interesting.
Was it on the back of an AA truck in the picture or not? Could become its natural habitat. You never know.
Oh dear. I just thought that was interesting because people always say, "Oh, Range Rover drivers won't want an EV version," but it's quite interesting. There's a lot of interest for it. So
the thing is, they're not being served at the moment, really. No. So there's bound to be big demand for it because again, you'll get loads of Range Rover drivers are sort of company directors of big successful businesses, and they'll just stick one through as a company car or salary sacrifice.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah. Cool. Definitely over 100 grand for that. London Electric Vehicle Company, I think that's the name of the company, LEVC, launched the new electric L380 MPV in China. This got some mad specs. So 140 kilowatt hour battery pack, 512 miles of range, and the company said in 2 years' time it will launch here. So a little bit slow to launch here, but This looks like the interior looks like a very posh airplane.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
That was my first thought when I saw it. So, yeah.
Yeah, and that's a similar vibe to that that Denza.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but I definitely need to get one of those in for review.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, I might go and live in it actually.
No,
it does look very, very cool.
I think there's still a market for potentially the old MPVs of like the early 2000s, but this is more of a luxury one.
Yeah,
definitely makes more sense over like a big SUV or anything.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Two more news items. So the Alfa Romeo Junior is now on sale in the UK. Not massively interesting, but the most interesting part was that it's actually cheaper than a Peugeot. So,
yeah, that's unbelievable how they've priced that. Because I mean, you look at it, and I know a lot of people have been quite upset about the way it looks, but I think it's a great looking thing.
oh yeah, it looks
And
like, very aggressive.
it's definitely
and
a lot more interested than a Peugeot E2 2008.
Yes, yeah, I definitely agree with that. Overall, I wasn't the very few Stellantis cars I've driven. The quality, there's something in the interior which isn't very impressive. But
Yeah.
I've driven one Alfa Romeo, the Giulia, and that feels really, really good quality. If that's anything to go by, then Alfa Romeo interior quality should be quite good, really. So,
And of course, the thing everyone worries about with Alpha is the reliability, and it's all the oily bits that, of course, this won't have.
no, this is just a Stellantis platform with an Alfa body.
Platform EV, yeah.
Yep. So yeah, usual sort of stuff. 255 mile range, 100 kilowatt charging, and then £33,000, just over. So it's quite a good price, really.
Yeah, that could do very well.
Yeah, I think so. And I agree with you. It does look quite good. So, very last thing, not EV related, but it is sort of home tech related and battery stuff. Tesla Powerwall 3 version 3 is now on sale in the UK. The main thing is it's got a built-in solar inverter now. So if you wanted one of these with solar panels, you'd have to get a separate sort of solar charger thing to go alongside it. This now has it built in, and it can output at a higher rate from what I remember. I think the Powerwall 2 could only output 7 kilowatt. This can do 11.5 kilowatt, and it's also now flood-proof or flood-resistant. So it's just quite good.
Yeah, pretty impressive.
Yeah, 13.5 kilowatt hour battery pack, and from things I've seen in the past of these things, they can run a normal sized house for quite a few days. So really, really impressive.
Have the solar tiles come out yet from Tesla?
They are in the US in limited availability. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that would make solar accessible to a lot more people, wouldn't it? And certainly less of an issue to have installed. I might be doing a video on solar actually with a guy that's got a solar channel. It's Gary Does Solar.
Okay.
And possibly then I'll do a video with him for his channel about EVs, because there's obviously a nice crossover there between the two.
I agree.
But yeah, I'd love to have solar, really, and it would make a lot of sense now. We've got electric car and possibly a second electric car at some stage, but it's just the huge expense of installing it. That something like that, I don't want to be paying it off for 20 years. I want it to pay for itself in about 3 weeks, ideally.
So when I went to Fully Charged, me and Andrew Till, we spoke to a company. I can't remember the name. I'll put it in the show notes if I can find it. They were doing a solar. What was it? It was like 0%. It was like you pay nothing up front for this solar installation, but you pay it off over a matter of years. But the main thing is that the savings that you would get would make that your energy doesn't cost anything.
Right.
Which is quite interesting. Again, I can't remember the name of it, but that seemed quite an interesting way of doing things. So yeah, cool. That's everything for that. Is there anything else that you've got coming up you want to let everyone know about? Or
what have I got coming up? Well, I've got Goodwood next month.
Ooh.
So yeah, I'll be there on Thursday, the 11th. So if anyone sees me at Goodwood, come over and say hello. I sometimes, occasionally, go to some of these things, and I find someone just staring at me for quite a long period of time, and you sort of smile, and that's it. They just continue to stare, and and then you get a message a couple of weeks later saying, "Oh, were you there or there?" And I say, "Yes." You think, just come over and say hello. I don't
Yeah.
bite that often. I've got the Polestar 2 next month,
Cool.
and I have reviewed the Polestar 2 before, but it was a long time ago, and obviously it's had a little bit of a midlife revamp. And I've also got the EV6 GT next month.
Oh, that sounds good.
And I've got something very exciting booked in at the end of August, which is 5 days with the Ioniq 5N.
Oh, mint.
Yeah.
Fair play.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Looking forward to that.
Yeah, that should be quite good. Awesome. I haven't got anything. Well, I got the next EV I've got is actually in September, so I haven't got anything for a while in terms of EV stuff. Got a couple of petrol cars in between that. But yeah, a little bit quieter for the summer. But
what are the
good.
petrol cars you've got coming up?
Qashqai, not the new one, but the old one next week.
Yep.
It's hybrid, and then I've got a GV80 in August.
Oh
so
wow!
July's going to be a bit empty, and then G80 electric in September. So
nice.
Yeah, should be good.
Good cars.
Yeah. Nice one. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Charging Status Podcast. You can find us in video on YouTube and in audio wherever you get your podcasts. For a full description of this show, visit the episode link in the show notes. Thanks again, Jim, for joining me on this show. You can find links to our website, theinterface.uk, and your website, notaguru.co.uk, in the show notes. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you again next time.
Bye-bye. I've got to get the door. Sorry. Delivery. Sorry about that. Just my hair care products being delivered.